All right, so for slope day 2, we're going to be going over what makes lines parallel and perpendicular using their slope. So first thing we're going to do is just practice finding the slope again. So if you have 2 points, this is your y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 2 minus 6 over 5 minus 3. You get negative 4 over 2, which is negative 2. 9 minus 3, 4 minus 4, so you get 6 over 0. So remember the 0 on the bottom says error in your calculator, so this would be undefined. And then 16 minus 7, 8 minus 4, get 9 over 4. So this is what we did before with finding the slope. It's the change in your y's, which is like counting up or down on your graph, and then the change in the x's, which is counting over. So in a plane, 2 lines that have the same slope are parallel. So same slope are parallel. If you want to underline those 2 words, they have to have the same exact slope. And if 2 lines are perpendicular, their product is -1, which means they're opposite reciprocals. So opposite reciprocals are perpendicular. So if you don't know what an opposite reciprocal is, I'll give you some examples. So opposite has to do with the sign. So if one's positive, the other one has to be negative. A reciprocal is basically flipping it. So if I had the slope 1/2, opposite would be, since this is positive, opposite would be negative, and then reciprocal means flip. So if I flip that over, I get 2 over 1. And then same thing, if I had -3, opposite would be positive, so it would have to be positive, and then flipping it, I would get 1/3. So if they're perpendicular lines, they are flipped, which is reciprocals, and they are also opposite signs. One is positive, one is negative. So here's an example of 2 lines. They're definitely not parallel because they're intersecting. So parallel means they would never intersect. But we have to check to see if they're perpendicular. So for me to check if they're perpendicular, I'm going to find the slope of both of these lines. So I'm going to start with line A here. So line A. So if you're doing the slope picture activity, this is a great review if you were struggling. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So counted up 6, 1, 2, 3, over 3. And then it's negative because I went left, or some people go down, which is also negative. So whether you go down and right or up and left, it should have been -2. A negative slope is something that is falling left to right. And then line B, I went 1, 2, 3, up 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I went right 6. So this one's positive because I went up and right. So this reduces to 1/2. So this one's negative, this one's positive, and they are reciprocals. This is actually the example I just kind of did up here. So these ones would be perpendicular. Perpendicular means they intersect at a 90-degree angle, not that they just intersect. So if you just had 2 lines intersecting like this, that does not mean they're perpendicular. Perpendicular means that this angle has to be 90 degrees. So let's just go over some slopes. So for number 1 here, slope 1 is 1, slope 2 is 1. They are the exact same sign and the exact same number. So this would be parallel. Number 2, opposite signs, one is negative, one is positive, and they are also reciprocals. So this would be perpendicular. And then for number 3, they are the exact same number again, so this would be parallel. So let me give you some examples of neither, just so you know what neither would be. So these would be neither parallel or perpendicular. These would just be two lines that are intersecting. So if they are not parallel or perpendicular, I mean, there's a million different answers to these, but like if I had one slope was 5 and then the other slope was 2, they're not the same, they're not opposite reciprocals. They would just be two intersecting lines. The one that tricks people is the 3 and -3. Some people think they're parallel because they're both 3, but if you notice, one's positive and one's negative. And then some people think they're perpendicular because of that, but they're not reciprocals. So they're not exactly the same, and they are also not reciprocals. So they are just neither. And then the other one you have to be careful with is if they give you reciprocals, like 2 and 1/2, but they're both positive. So it's only perpendicular if it's both opposite and reciprocal. It has to be one. So these are all examples of lines that are just intersecting. They're not parallel or perpendicular. So in the back here, what I want you to do is find the slope. So I'll do the first one. Find the slope of line 1 by doing the slope formula. So the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I get 5 over 5, which is 1. And then find the slope of line 2. So 12 minus 2, 2 minus -8. So I get 10 over 10. Once you find the slope of line 1 and line 2, say whether it's parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So for number 1 here, I got 1 and 1. So these ones would be parallel. So go ahead and try 2 and 3. So for 2, I got two completely different slopes. So these would just be neither. And then for 3, I got 3 over 1 and -1/3. So these are opposite and reciprocals. So this one should have been perpendicular. And then down here is just a little slope application problem. It tells you that you have a zip line and it is on a 10-foot tower and then it hits a 6-foot wall. They want to know what the slope of this zip line is. So this has nothing to do with parallel or perpendicular right now. It just has to do with slope. So remember, slope is rise over run, meaning it's how far you go up or down over how far you're running side to side. So if I want the slope of this zip line, there's 2 ways you can do it. So figure out how high it goes. So height could either go this way, like you could do it above, or if you wanted to do it below, that's fine too. So if the whole wall is 10 feet and this wall is 6 feet high, that must mean that this is 6 feet over here. So this is 4. So I know the height of my zip line off my wall is 4 there. So 4. And then how far is my zip line running? And they told you that was 20. So for every 1 foot that you ride it down, you go 5 feet long because I've reduced it. So this is 4 and then this is 20. So 4 over 20, or you could do it this way, like this is 4 as well.